The waiter kept refilling my glass like he was trying to drown the silence sitting across from me. The candle between us flickered against the polished wine glass. Caught in the same loop as my thoughts. I told them we were celebrating an anniversary. The 6th one. They gave us the same table we always asked for, the one in the corner. Near the window. Where you could see the city lights blink like distant promises. But tonight, the chair across from me stayed empty. I tried to smile. To act like maybe she was just late. Maybe traffic was bad. Maybe she was running up the stairs with an apology and that little laugh of hers that could melt steel. But I'd been sitting there for 43 minutes. And in those 43 minutes, hope went from a flame to smoke. Morello's hadn't changed in 6 years. Same white tablecloths. Same jazz humming low. Even the same waiter, older now. But with that same polite pity behind his eyes. He'd seen this scene before. Husbands left waiting. Wives gone quiet. Promises breaking quietly over expensive meals. He asked if I wanted to order while I waited. I told him no. Just a whiskey. Neat. The amber burned going down. But not as bad as the thought that maybe I already knew the truth and just didn't want to say it out loud. 7 years ago. We'd sat right here. And I'd asked her to be my wife. I'd hidden the ring in her dessert, stupidly romantic. The kind of thing men my age usually laugh about later. But when she found it, she cried. The whole restaurant had clapped. I'd thought we were untouchable that night, like love itself had signed a contract with us. And for a while, it felt that way. She was Rebecca, then wild. Curious. Magnetic. She had this way of making the whole room bend toward her when she laughed. We'd met at a friend's housewarming party. She'd been holding a glass of wine, talking about how she wanted to backpack through Europe. I'd told her I once spent a month in Thailand trying to learn to surf. She laughed and said I didn't look like the type who fell off boards for fun. That night we talked until the candles burned out. The next day, we met for coffee. The day after that for lunch. By the end of the week, we weren't two people meeting, we were already remembering each other. For a long time, we were the couple people envied. We had matching weekend mugs. We argued about Netflix shows. We planned vacations a year in advance. Because we believed in the future, like it was something you could build brick by brick. Every January, she'd say, "This is the year we upgrade, bigger house. Backyard. Kids." And I'd nod. Because I wanted those same things. I wanted them with her. But lately, something had shifted. It started with late nights. Work projects. A tired voice on the phone. At first, I didn't think twice. Everyone gets busy. But the weeks piled up. And she felt further away, even when she was right beside me. The smell of her perfume changed. The tone of her laugh changed. It wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't say anymore. I'd sit in bed, staring at her side of the mattress. Cold and untouched. She'd text at midnight saying she was wrapping up at the office. I wanted to believe her. I really did. The phone on the table buzzed, cutting through my thoughts. A message. Her name lighting up the screen. So sorry. Babe. Stuck at work. Big client tomorrow. Rain check. I stared at it for a long time. The little heart emoji at the end felt like a slap of cheap decoration on top of a lie. I typed nothing back. I didn't have to. Because in that moment, I knew love doesn't vanish in a storm. It fades quietly under fluorescent office lights and unanswered texts. The waiter came by again. Smiling like this wasn't the first time he'd seen a man sitting alone with an untouched plate and too much whiskey in his veins. He asked if everything was all right. I said yes. But it wasn't. As I left the restaurant, the night air hit me like a question I didn't want to answer. The city was alive, couples walking. Laughter spilling from bars. Cabs sliding through puddles. The world was still turning. but mine had tilted just a little. I unlocked my car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at my reflection in the window. Somewhere along the way, I'd become the man waiting for a woman who wasn't coming, the anniversary that never happened, the dinner that turned into a wake for something I couldn't bury yet. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the streetlight painting her empty seat in the passenger side gold. And that's when it hit me, the kind of thought that doesn't shout. It whispers. When love starts hiding behind excuses, it's already halfway gone, and in that silence, a seed took root, small, cold, and certain. The seed of doubt. The kind that never stops growing once it's planted. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was quiet, like a door that didn't slam but simply stopped opening. At first, I told myself she was just busy. New clients. New deadlines. I wanted to believe that work was the reason she came home later and later. The reason she kept her phone face down on the counter. The reason her laughter had turned into something polite and distant. 3 nights a week became her new normal. Big campaign, she said. The team's under pressure. She'd kiss my cheek on her way out. And I'd smell it, the perfume. It wasn't the one I'd bought her for Christmas. This one was sharper. Heavier. A stranger's scent wearing her name. At first, I ignored it. Men do that, we file our doubts away like bills we don't want to open. But small things started adding up. The way she'd smile when she texted. The half-second delay before she set her phone down. The lipstick she didn't wear for months, suddenly returning. The extra time in front of the mirror before just another late night at the office. The same gestures that used to make her beautiful now felt rehearsed. One Friday, I suggested a weekend getaway. Just us. No phones. No work. No deadlines. That little inn in Sonoma. I said, trying to sound casual. You loved the wine there. She didn't even look up from her laptop. I can't. Big pitch Monday. Come on. Beck. We'll be back Sunday. She sighed that deep, tired sigh. That means the argument is already over. I said I can't. Ethan. Not now. Not now. I heard it for the first time, then that phrase that sounds temporary but means forever. Nights got longer. Dinners getter. Even the way she moved through the house felt different, careful. Like she was afraid of bumping into my suspicion. One night, I reached for her in bed, just to hold her. Nothing more. She tensed. I'm exhausted, she whispered, and I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering when my touch became an inconvenience. By the second week, it wasn't about the hours anymore. It was about the distance. I'd make jokes to fill the silence. She'd smile without looking up. The woman who once told me everything now spoke in headlines. Busy day. Big client. Can we talk later? Later never came. On Tuesday, she said she'd be home late again. At 9:30. I called her office, just to hear her voice. Maybe ease the knot in my chest. Meridian Marketing. This is Sandra, said a bright voice on the other end. Hi, I said. I'm looking for Rebecca Cole. There was a pause. Then, a confused tone. Oh. Everyone left around 6:30. Sir, the building's locked up. I gripped the phone tighter. You're sure, positive. I closed up myself. I hung up. My heart pounding so hard it made my hands shake. There it was, the proof that didn't need photos or private investigators. The simplest truth of all, she wasn't at work. She was somewhere else. The rest of that night felt unreal. I sat in the kitchen, lights off, waiting for the sound of the garage door. When it finally came, just past 11, I could hear her humming as she walked in. Like nothing in the world was wrong. She kissed my forehead, said, "Long day, and went straight to the shower. The sound of running water covered everything. The lies. The perfume. The echo of her laughter from somewhere else. I poured a drink and stood by the window, watching her shadow move behind the curtain. Every story about betrayal starts with a small detail. Something too insignificant to question. For me, it was that perfume. That scent that didn't belong in our house anymore. It's strange how quickly love can turn into surveillance. How you start noticing everything, the way she sets down her keys, how long she stays in the shower, the time she replies to a text. It's like your brain becomes an investigator while your heart keeps pretending it's fine. I told myself maybe there was an innocent reason. Maybe she'd gone out with coworkers. Maybe she didn't want to worry me. But deep down, I knew. Every man knows. That moment when belief dies and instinct takes over. It's not loud. It's not cinematic. It's a quiet surrender. The kind where you sit in your own living room and realize you're the only one still fighting for a marriage that already left the room. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at her hand resting on the pillow, the ring I'd placed there years ago catching the light from the hallway. And for the first time, I wondered if the vows we'd made were still living, or if they'd died somewhere between her late nights and my silence. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. But something inside me shifted. Love was no longer about trust. It was about evidence. And I knew I was about to start looking for it. There's a moment every man dreads, the one where suspicion stops being a shadow and turns into a shape you can see. It was a Thursday night when I decided I couldn't sit still anymore. Rebecca said she'd be late again. Another round of revisions. Her voice clipped and distracted. She didn't notice how quiet I was, how long I held her eyes before she turned away. Maybe she thought I'd already given up. Maybe she thought I'd never check. But that night, I followed her. It felt wrong at first, childish, petty, like I was betraying her privacy. Then I realized something cruelly simple. You can't betray someone who's already betrayed you. She took her silver sedan, the one I'd helped her pick out 2 years earlier, down the highway toward the city. I stayed back, 3 cars behind, headlights off at red lights, watching her taillights like they were leading me to the truth I'd been too afraid to face. She didn't turn toward her office. She didn't stop for gas. She kept driving until she pulled into the parking lot of the Havenwood Hotel, the kind of place business travelers use for convenience and cheaters use for discretion. I parked across the street, hands tight around the steering wheel, pulse thudding in my throat. I told myself maybe she was meeting a client. Maybe this was innocent. But then I saw him, Mark Ellis, her boss, 42, married, 2 kids. I'd seen his face on her company's website when I looked up her firm weeks earlier. He got out of his car and walked toward hers, smiling like a man who didn't have to hide. And there she was, Rebecca, stepping out in that black coat she only wore for special occasions. She laughed at something he said. The sound carried across the lot like a blade. I'd loved that laugh. It used to belong to me. They walked side by side toward the entrance. He placed his hand on her lower back, that soft, protective touch men reserve for the women they think are theirs. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it, and in that single gesture, my world stopped pretending. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I just watched, silent, steady, cold, because in that moment, I understood something most people never do. Anger is easy. Proof is power. They disappeared into the hotel. I stayed there for almost an hour, watching the glass doors open and close for strangers. None of them were her. By the time I drove home, my heart wasn't breaking anymore. It was calcifying, turning into something harder, heavier. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the dark window, listening to the refrigerator hum like background noise in a life that had gone off script. I thought about confronting her, demanding the truth. But what would that change? She'd lie. They always lie until they're cornered by evidence that leaves no air to breathe. So I made my decision. If the truth was going to hurt me, I wanted it to bleed honesty. The next morning, after she left for work, I opened my laptop and searched private investigator. Infidelity proof. Discreet. The top result, Ray Donovan Investigations. No fancy website. No slogans. Just a phone number. His voice on the line was rough. Gravelly. The kind that belonged to a man who'd seen too many lives split down the middle. Tell me what's going on, he said. I told him everything. The late nights. The perfume. The hotel. He didn't sound surprised. You're not the first. And you won't be the last. He said. What do you want from this, Mr. Cole? That question lingered. What did I want? To fix it? To forgive her? No. Something deeper. Something colder. I don't want closure. I told him. I want evidence. There was a pause, then a slow exhale. Like he understood exactly the kind of man sitting on the other end of the line. That'll take time and money, he said. If she's seeing this guy regularly, we'll have what you need soon enough. Photos. Timestamps. Receipts, the kind of proof no one can talk their way out of. Do it, I said. When I hung up, I felt something unexpected, not guilt. Not even sadness, just a strange, steady calm. For the first time in weeks, my hands weren't shaking. That night, when Rebecca came home smelling faintly of cologne, that wasn't mine. She smiled and kissed my cheek. I smiled back. Perfectly. Because now, it wasn't about trust anymore. It was about strategy. And as she disappeared into the shower, humming softly like a woman with nothing to hide, I poured myself a drink and looked out the window. The man I'd been the one who waited for answers was gone. In his place stood someone else. Someone colder. Someone watching. And for the first time, I realized sometimes the only way to survive betrayal is to become the quiet witness to your own awakening. 2 weeks. That's how long silence lasted, long enough for doubt to grow teeth. Long enough for my heart to stop asking why and start whispering how much longer. Every night. Rebecca came home a little later. Every morning. She kissed me like it was a duty, not a choice. She didn't know I'd already set the clock on our ending. Ray didn't call until a Thursday afternoon. His voice was as dry as the air between us. I've got something for you, Mr. Cole. You might want to sit down when you see it. The next day, he handed me a brown envelope. It was heavier than I expected. Inside, time-stamped photos, hotel receipts, even short video clips. Cold. Professional. Absolute. Evidence doesn't care about feelings. It just tells the truth. I went home, poured a drink, and opened my laptop. The first image loaded slow, like it knew I needed a few extra seconds to prepare. Rebecca, my wife, standing in a hotel parking lot, smiling up at Mark Ellis. Another photo, his hand brushing her hair back. Then one more, them kissing, framed by a streetlight that made it look almost cinematic. I scrolled through them one by one. The timestamps told a story of their own dates that matched her late nights, locations that matched her lies. Then the videos, short clips, grainy but clear enough. Them in the same room, curtains half drawn. Laughter I used to know echoing faintly through the audio. A kiss that wasn't mine. A hand that wasn't mine. My body went still. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just watched until I couldn't anymore. It's strange. Heartbreak doesn't feel like a crash. It feels like gravity suddenly doubles, pulling everything inside you down to one point until you can't breathe. The woman I loved wasn't there anymore. What sat in her place was a stranger, wearing her smile and sleeping in my bed. I closed the laptop and stared into the dark. My reflection in the screen looked unfamiliar, harder, colder. Someone forged from betrayal and silence. The next morning, I forwarded everything to my attorney. Margaret Chase, a woman who'd once helped a friend through his own messy divorce. She called within an hour. Her voice was calm. Efficient, the kind of calm that comes from dealing with ruined marriages for a living. Mr. Cole, this evidence is overwhelming, she said. With fault-based divorce laws in this state, and proof this explicit, you'll retain everything. The house, the accounts, all assets. She'll lose credibility. And he'll lose his career. I let her finish. Then I said quietly, I'm not interested in taking her money. Margaret paused. Then what are you interested in? I looked out the window. Sunlight cutting across the floor like a line between two worlds, the life I had, and the one that was ending. I'm taking back my dignity. Because money fades. Houses get sold. But the way someone looks at you when they know you've seen the truth, that's forever. Margaret didn't argue. Understood, she said finally. When you're ready, we'll proceed. After the call, I sat in silence. The evidence still open on my screen. 16 photographs, 3 receipts, 2 videos, enough proof to end a marriage, 2 careers, and maybe a few illusions about love. I'd once believed love could survive anything: distance, stress, time. But love can't survive deceit. It rots from the inside, quietly, until all that's left is the shell of something that used to be beautiful. That night, Rebecca came home humming softly, the smell of perfume trailing behind her. She smiled at me, asked how my day was, told me she missed me. And I realized then the woman standing in front of me had no idea her mask was already slipping. I played along, kissed her forehead, told her I was tired. She went upstairs. None the wiser. When I heard the bedroom door close, I poured another drink and opened Ray's folder again. Each photo was a confession she'd never have the courage to say out loud, and I made a promise to myself this wasn't going to end with shouting, or tears, or second chances. It was going to end clean, surgical, precise, because betrayal deserves a witness. And I'd already become one, so I waited. Not with rage. Not with heartbreak, but with strategy. Some men fight fire with fire. I prefer something colder. Truth. Because truth doesn't burn, it freezes. And when it's over, the ones who lied are the only ones left shivering. The truth is, revenge doesn't start with rage. It starts with clarity. The moment you stop asking why and start planning when. Over the weekend, I made preparations. Small things that would look harmless to anyone else. I ordered fine paper, a silk ribbon, and a gift box large enough to hold everything that once held meaning. On Sunday night, when she said she had to work late again, I sat at our dining table, the same one where we'd planned our wedding and toasted our anniversaries and laid out the evidence. 47 photographs, each one numbered, time-stamped. Proof that love had an expiration date I never saw coming. I looked at every single one until my eyes stopped burning. Then I began. I printed them in color. Glossy finish, not out of cruelty, but precision. I wanted the truth to look as undeniable as it felt. I lined the box with silk, arranged the photos carefully, from casual smiles to unmistakable betrayal. On top, I placed a card. The handwriting was mine, steady, clean, without emotion. For my loving wife. For all the late nights you said you were working. E. I tied the ribbon around the box. Slow and deliberate. The way one ties off a wound that's finally done bleeding. Monday morning arrived gray and still fitting for what was coming. Rebecca kissed me on the cheek before leaving for the biggest client presentation of her career. She even smiled. The kind of smile that once melted me, Now it just confirmed what I already knew. When the door closed, I opened my laptop, one by one. I queued 3 emails already written, ready to send. One to HR at her company. One to Mark Ellis's wife. One to Rebecca's parents. Each with attachments, the photographs, receipts, and timestamps, the evidence of who she'd really been after the lights went out. But not yet. Timing is everything. At exactly 2:05 p.m., I called the courier service I'd hired. The instructions were clear: deliver the roses first, the box second, the divorce papers last, all to her office, all in front of her team. The driver texted me a single message at 2:36. Delivery complete. I pictured it in my mind, Rebecca's face lighting up when the receptionist announced a delivery from her husband. The red roses, a token of forgiveness she thought I was still capable of. The box, beautifully wrapped, elegant, inviting. Her coworkers smiling, curious. The sound of paper tearing, the rustle of silk, the silence that follows when truth hits the floor, gasps. A photo sliding out, landing face up on the carpet. Her smile fading as the laughter around her turned to whispers. At 2:40, the scheduled emails went out. To her boss, to Mark's wife, to her parents. Every lie detonated at the same time. I didn't need to be there. I didn't need to see it. Because I'd already rehearsed it 100 times in my head, the unraveling, the shock, the collapse of a carefully built illusion, as I sat in my car, parked 3 blocks away. My phone buzzed once. A text from the courier package opened. Reaction immediate. Leaving now. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Not joy, not satisfaction, just the heavy, quiet calm that comes when justice finally catches up to deceit. When I drove home, I didn't hurry. I wanted to feel every second of that silence. By the time I reached the house, I'd already changed the locks. Her key wouldn't fit anymore. Inside, the air felt different, lighter. The pictures of us on the walls were gone. I'd packed them away the night before. The bed looked cleaner, emptier. I poured myself a glass of scotch, watched the ice melt, and said it out loud, almost like a prayer. Revenge doesn't need anger. It just needs timing. Because anger burns fast. It consumes you. But timing leaves a mark. It's not the shouting that ends a marriage. It's the moment the truth arrives, gift-wrapped, with your own handwriting on top. I didn't know what Rebecca did after that. Maybe she cried. Maybe she begged. Maybe she realized too late that some men don't explode, they erase. What I knew for certain was that the balance had been restored. She'd gambled our marriage for secrecy. I returned it with exposure. No yelling. No violence. No tears. Just truth, perfectly timed. And in that truth, I found something she could never fake again: my peace. Fallout comes faster than forgiveness. By Tuesday morning, the story had already spread through her company, like smoke through vents. Whispers in hallways. Deleted group chats. By noon, Rebecca Cole was escorted out of the building, the same office she'd once bragged about running late for. The HR department called it violation of professional ethics. Everyone else called it what it was: humiliation. Mark Ellis didn't survive it either. His wife filed for divorce the next day. His name hit the company memo in bold: terminated for misconduct. A man who once lectured about loyalty, now begging reporters to leave him alone. As for Rebecca, the fallout reached her parents' doorstep before she did. Her mother's voice cracked over the phone when I heard her say, "We raised you better than this." They cut her off completely. No excuses. No comfort. No soft landing. By Friday, I heard the knock. Soft at first, then desperate. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I knew the sound of her crying before I opened the door. Mascara streaked, hair tangled, voice shaking. She said my name like it could still save her. Ethan, please. It was a mistake. I looked at her, the woman I used to love, now standing in front of me, like a stranger, wearing regret. A mistake. I shook my head slowly. You made that mistake 6 months in a row. She started to cry harder, hands trembling, reaching out like she could touch the past and make it real again. You didn't lose me, Rebecca, I said quietly. You sold me for hotel rooms and validation. Her lips parted, but no words came out. There was nothing left to say. I closed the door. Not in anger and finality. Behind it, her sobs faded into silence. And the house finally felt honest again. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for anything, not love, not answers, not closure, just peace. And sometimes, peace doesn't come when you forgive someone. It comes when you stop opening the door. Months passed. The noise faded. The rumors died. And silence finally started sounding like peace instead of loneliness. The condo was smaller than the old house cleaner. Simpler. No ghosts in the corners. No perfume lingering in the air. Just coffee brewing in the mornings. A gym bag by the door. And music that didn't remind me of anyone. I started rebuilding. Piece by piece. Not to prove anything, just to remember who I was before her lies tried to redefine me. Work got better. My body stronger. My mind sharper. Betrayal didn't destroy me. It rebuilt me stronger. Colder. Clearer. People say time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal. Discipline does. Consistency does. Looking in the mirror every day and refusing to let bitterness become your identity, that's what heals you. One morning, I stopped by a cafe on my way to work. Same place I used to visit years ago. Before the marriage. Before the wreckage. The woman behind the counter smiled as she handed me my coffee small. Genuine. Without expectation. I smiled back. Not because I was ready to love again, but because, for the first time, I wasn't angry anymore. And in that quiet exchange, I realized something simple. When she said she was working late, I thought I'd lost everything. Turns out, I only lost the illusion. Because the truth is, no one really takes your peace. You give it away. And when you finally stop giving it to the wrong person, life has a way of returning it. Men, if you discovered the truth like I did, what would you do? Confront her, expose her, or walk away and let your new life speak for itself?